Hi, Michelle Glass here. Welcome back to another one of our Chapter 5 episodes. We are talking here about epidermal pigmentation, and there are two major pigments that are involved. We're going to talk a little bit more about that pigment melanin that we've mentioned previously, and a new pigment called keratin. Now notice this sounds very much like keratin, which is our protein that we talked about that was spelled with a K. This is keratin with a C, so make sure that you are paying attention there to those two terms. Now, melanin is, of course, the pigment that is produced by those special cells called those melanocytes. And we will see melanin is the pigment that's involved in our skin color and our hair color and our eye color. So there are variations of this color that we will see individual to individual. Now remember, we talked about those melanocytes as being housed in the stratum basale and then producing those vesicles of melanin that are then transported through the different layers. Those vesicles are called melanosomes, and they are transferring that melanin to those keratinocytes. Now, we will see that all individuals have about the same number of melanocytes, but we do know there's a genetic component to skin color and that there's a lot of variation there. And part of that variation has to do with how far those melanosomes will travel. So in paler skin, we will see melanosomes in that stratum spinosum layer, and that's as far as they'll go. In darker colored skin, we will see those melanosomes moving all the way to the stratum granulosum layer. We will also see that there's a difference in the activity of those melanocytes between the paler skin and the darker skin. So in darker skin, those cells are producing more melanosomes, and then they're being transported further to the surface in the stratum granulosum layer instead of the stratum spinosum layer. So these are some of the differences that we see in the genetic component between our range of skin colors that we see in individuals. So from a paler skin to a darker skin. Regardless, we're going to expect to see 1,000 to 2,000 melanocytes per millimeter, and this variation is existing across places of the body. So we do know that you have some parts of your skin that have more skin pigment than others. So think about the paleness to our thick skin, the palms of our hands and our soles of our feet. Partly that's because you have that extra layer, the stratum lucidum, but also you are seeing differences in the melanocyte production. Also, lip coloration is different from other areas of the skin and so forth. The key job for the melanin is to protect from ultraviolet radiation, and so then we do see there's an environmental component. After about 10 days of ultraviolet radiation exposure, that's when you're going to really see your peak production of your melanin being produced there. So obviously sun exposure is going to increase the amount of melanin that is being produced, and so you will see a darker skin color within a certain range depending on genetics with sun exposure. Keratin is a pigment that is derived from our diet. You'll see it in carrots, that orange color, but also squashes and pumpkins that have the same sort of coloration. It can actually accumulate in the stratum corneum and the hypodermis, so it can give more of an orangey tone to your skin, especially if you've been eating a whole lot of carrots. It is converted to vitamin A, which is important for healthy epithelial tissue and for vision. So it is a healthy component of your diet, and it is something that can then be stored or accumulate in the integumentary system. So keratin is something that can contribute to skin pigmentation. So we're seeing melanocytes, and they're being controlled both by genetics and environment, giving us different colorations for our skin. Our diet, carotene, is also influencing our skin pigmentation. And a third source is dermal blood flow. So if you have blood flowing to the dermis, you're going to have more of a rosy red color potentially. You've seen the flush that happens with embarrassment or with lots of activity. Or maybe somebody's looking more pale because that blood is more flowing internally and away from the dermis. So when our superficial blood vessels dilate, we get more of a red color to our skin. This is going to be a part of our thermoregulation. Putting that blood flow to our skin is allowing for some of that heat to leave the body. So this is why you might get that flush with when you're hot or when you've been exercising a lot. And of course, the amount of that coloration that is seen might depend on the base color to the skin, which is influenced by those melanocytes. And then also a reduction or lack of blood flow might make the skin look whiter or paler. And this might be just a refocus of that blood. That's not quite the right word, but redistribution of that blood away from the extremities and more to the internal part of the body. Or if you've had a reduction of blood flow because you're lacking oxygen, cyanosis might give you that bluish color you might see in fingernails or tips of fingers as a result of severe reduction of blood flow. Okay, and that's it for now.